Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fangirl Hell. Today's going to be a very special, angry episode, so you're going to love this. My name's Christy Stewart. I'm a future homeless person, and as always, my co-star is...
Cosmic, lifelong nerd, and aspiring genius, and I am surprised I remembered that since we have not done this in so long.
Yeah, well, apparently I lost my ability to think of anything on the spot. I just kept thinking, don't repeat yourself. What have you said? I don't know. And I thought, with that kind of genius, you're going to be homeless. And then I thought, you got it.
Okay, so as you mentioned, today is a special angry episode. Do you want to tell us why?
Okay. So, man, I'd like to, but, I can't. You know more about this guy than I do. So, there's this evil guy who's apparently in charge of everything on the BBC now. His name's Moffat. And yeah, we're gonna do the rundown of why he's ruined everything lately.
Oh, Moffat.
So first, why don't you, for anyone who doesn't know who he is, kind of explain who he is besides his usual...
Well, to my knowledge, or I should say to me, I first came to know of Moffat because he created this show called Coupling on the BBC, which
didn't that we did our own version called Friends?
Well, no. Coupling was actually the BBC's version of a British version of Friends, basically.
Oh, and I thought that first.
And then the US tried to make their own version of Coupling, and I think it got canceled after the pilot because it was awful.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
So I first came to know of Moffat through Coupling, and I think that's sort of what made him become a known name. And then I never really heard anything about him again until I got into Doctor Who, and he wrote a couple episodes in Doctor Who, and I know when Russell T Davies was still the showrunner and head writer and all that stuff, and I know in a previous episode we talked about how when Steven Moffat was not the showrunner of Doctor Who and he was just a one-off episode writer, a lot of the episodes that he wrote were actually fan favorites of Doctor Who fans, and he won awards for some of the episodes that he wrote and all this kind of stuff. And when you look at his episodes individually, they were decent. A lot of them were sort of, the overall concept of the story was better than, say, the character development in the story, which I think is a big problem for him. I think he has general ideas that are interesting, but he can't develop a character to save his life.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. When you look at the individual episodes that he wrote for Doctor Who before he became the showrunner, you see this pattern developing, and we've discussed this on a previous episode where it seems like every female character that he created, basically he sets it up as her end goal is to get married, settle down, and have children. The way this woman fulfills her life is to become a mother and have children. And on a one-off...
It wasn't only that. He literally said at one point that that's what he believes women want.
Yeah. And, as a one-off episode, having a female character that her dream in life is to get married and have children, fine. But when it's every single female character you create, that's problematic. Then he took over as showrunner of Doctor Who, and I'll admit, the first season that he was the showrunner, it was okay. It was decent. There were definite plot holes, and there were some problematic things, but it was decent. Ever since that, the 6th season, the 7th season, it's just gone downhill. And it's so disappointing, because it's I like Doctor Who, and I want to keep following it, but at the same time, it's every time I feel like I watch it, there's at least, 5 or more incidences where I'm just really?
So he also is the showrunner for Sherlock, which is hugely popular.
Yes.
All over the world. It was supposed to be, I believe when they first started, it was supposed to be 2 seasons. And then after the first season, it was so popular, they said, "Oh, let's do 3 then." And now that the second one has aired, they said, oh, we'll probably do, 4, 5, and 6 now.
Yeah.
So fans are excited, but also kind of like, oh, we're really worried. So those are two things that he's like in control of. So first, because a lot about Doctor Who, and I think he's been on that the longest. Let's talk about how terrible he is in Doctor Who and the recent things he's done, and then let's talk a little bit about how he maybe has ruined the actors.
Yeah.
In Sherlock, and now they're saying really shitty things.
Yes. Okay. So, God, I don't even know where to begin. Like,
well, we've already gone over in other episodes,
yeah.
the sexism and the racism.
I feel like the things I'm going to say I've read in connection more so with Doctor Who than with Sherlock, but
yeah.
It seems like I actually was just reading this shortly before we started recording. I guess it was brought up in an interview with him about some fans of Doctor Who, like not necessarily some of them complaining and some of them just sort of questioning plot holes in his episodes, and saying that he has a lot of plot holes in his Doctor Who episodes. And he said, well, I always just sort of thought the audience was clever enough to figure it out themselves. People misunderstand what a plot hole is. A plot hole is not when you don't show something happening on screen. A plot hole is when you can't explain something. And it's like, no, a plot hole is when you jump from point A to point Z and there's nothing to even hint at a connection between the two. That's a plot hole. And he has a lot of them. He also has a lot of times...
Or something contradictory happens.
Yes. He has a lot of times where either something that has been stated emphatically in one of the episodes that he has worked on, or an episode that was, made prior to him becoming showrunner, or even prior to him ever working on a Doctor Who episode. And then, it's something that has become canon and everybody knows it. And then he completely contradicts it, even when it's something that he put into canon himself. And then he has the nerve, when people question him on this, he has the nerve to tell them, oh, that to keep all that stuff straight would take a scary level of fan knowledge. Well, you are the showrunner. Continuity is supposed to be your job. And if not yours, there should be somebody keeping track of the continuity.
Yeah.
I'm yelling. I'm just so like, ugh.
And it's kind of ridiculous. Like, does he not? He seems to mock the idea of fandom in general.
Yes.
Like that's what fandom is. We track the continuity to a scary degree.
Yeah.
And especially in genres like sci-fi.
Yeah, and I feel like in the past, when he took over as showrunner of Doctor Who, and I'm sure at other points too, he has, said before that he is a fan of Doctor Who, that he is a fanboy. So shouldn't you have that scary level of knowledge? I mean, really.
With our changing culture in fandom, that's starting, I think, to mean a lot less. Like, people think they're fanboys and fangirls if they enjoy a show, and that's why you have that anger about fake fanboys and fangirls.
Yeah,
I know you're a fanboy, but you're a different level one. If you're going into it saying, oh yes, I'm a fanatic, people are gonna take your word for it.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of people, because they had the 50th anniversary special in November, and then they had the Christmas special in Christmas, and I know there were a lot of people who were really annoyed and upset about both of those episodes, because they felt like things that he did in those episodes were sort of just a complete disregard to the canon of the show. Like when Doctor Who was relaunched in 2005 by Russell T Davies as the showrunner and head producer, or head writer, producer, whatever. A big plot line of it was the Doctor was still getting over the Time War, and the Time War was a war between the Time Lords, which is what the Doctor is, and the Daleks. And it was this never-ending war that just spread across the universe and was just horrible and awful, and the only way to end it was for the Doctor to just kill all the Daleks, kill all the Time Lords, and he is the only one left. He's the only one that survived the Time War, and it was a really like thing that really laid heavily on him, and it made him almost militantly against violence and against weapons. And then in the 50th anniversary special, like there's this magic reset button where, oh no, sorry, you didn't actually kill all the Time Lords. You just sort of shifted the planet out of time into an alternate universe. They're all still alive. You just think they're dead. And it's like, you've completely erased the motivations that he had to do all these things throughout the rest of the seasons. People were so like just livid about that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But the new
Okay, wait. So this is something I'm confused about.
Okay.
Continually, and I will keep asking you to try to explain this to me. So we're on the 12th Doctor.
Yes.
So wasn't there only supposed to be 12? How have they?
Okay. This is the way that Moffat decided to get around that.
Okay, because I was wondering if he ever was forced to address it.
Yes, in the Christmas episode, right? Okay, it's too long to really go into the depth of it, and I will probably start talking and then interrupt myself to go back and explain something else. So I will try to simplify it as best I can.
It would confuse me.
Yeah. So
just be simple.
The Doctor goes to a planet called Trenzalore, which has been prophesized as the planet where he is going to die.
Okay.
He lives out several hundred years on this planet in the Christmas episode, protecting it from all these bad guys like Daleks and Cybermen and all these like Doctor Who bad guys that are circling this planet, because the planet, there's a spot on the planet where there is a crack in time, a crack in the bubble of the universe, where if the Doctor goes to this crack and he says what his real name is, it will bring the Time Lord's planet back. And if that happens, the Time War starts again. So all these bad guys are sort of around the planet, and they keep coming down trying to kill the Doctor so that he can't bring the Time Lords back.
But why would he? Wait, oh my God! Why would he want to do that if he wouldn't want the war to start again?
In the episode itself, that I don't really think they did a good job of explaining why he suddenly wants to bring them back.
Okay.
I mean, I will say my memory is not the best. You know that. I've told you that several times, but from what I remember, he basically seemed like he just wanted to bring them back out of spite because nobody wanted them brought back.
Okay, well that's great.
Yeah.
What a hero.
So, or not that he necessarily wanted to bring them back, because I don't think he did, but he didn't want, I think maybe it might have been, I don't know, like, the Christmas episode was a train wreck. So, it could be interpreted, yeah, it was a train wreck. So
I'll just take your word for it. So,
yeah,
he needs to go down there and say his name, which I guess we don't know.
No, we don't know his real name.
Okay.
So, at one point when he's dying, he's like an old man.
I thought he couldn't age.
No, he ages. It's just that he can, if he doesn't regenerate, he ages. It just he ages, I guess, more slowly than a human would.
Okay.
But if he goes like, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years without regenerating, he's gonna eventually start aging. So he's been on this planet now for like, hundreds and hundreds of years protecting these people that live there. So at one point he's an old man, and Clara, who is his current companion, who he was awful to in this episode, like awful to. At one point she sees this crack in the wall that is like the crack between the universes to where the Time Lord's planet is. And as the Doctor's basically dying, she's like, tearfully talking into this crack and saying, that he doesn't need to tell them his name. They already know his name. He is the Doctor, and he saves people and blah, 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 all this stuff. And she's like, she's basically pleading with them to help him out, to save him. So the Doctor's like up in this big watchtower, and the crack that was at one point on a wall is suddenly in the sky, and this, like, the... You've never seen him regenerate, I don't think. So when they regenerate, they get this, like, glowy, misty, glittery aura around them. So the regeneration aura stuff, like, shoots out of this crack in the sky and goes into him. And it's basically the Time Lords giving him extra regenerations.
Oh.
And that's how they get around him having a limited number of regenerations. So he has a whole new cycle of regenerations now.
So did they say specifically he has like 12 more?
They didn't specifically say a number, but I believe he said something about having a new cycle of regenerations. So I'm going to assume that means he gets started all over fresh.
Oy.
Yeah. But anyway, I was going to say, the 12th Doctor, he's played by Peter Capaldi. He's a Scottish actor. He's actually been in Doctor Who before, as well as in Torchwood before.
Wait a minute. Let me guess. Is he a white guy?
Yes.
Oh my god. Surprising.
As far as the appearance of him, he's an older man, and they have for a while been tending to skew towards younger. So I mean, that's like, as far as ageism goes, that's an improvement. But yeah, but the thing the reason I brought this up is because there are rumors that he has been, like, sort of arguing with Moffat about the scripts. So, and there are also rumors that the BBC was backing Peter Capaldi to be the next Doctor more so than Steven Moffat was. So are there people, like, fans are sort of saying, oh, they hope this is, like, Peter Capaldi is going to be the thing that, like, pushes Steven Moffat out of the Doctor Who, you know?
I wouldn't feel hopeful about it, but
I know.
I don't trust celebrities.
Yeah. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, that's like the rumors. That's the fan rumors that are going around.
So are we up to date on the Doctor Who and go to Sherlock?
Sure. Yeah. Let's go to Sherlock.
Now, you don't watch the show, do you? Or have you started?
Yes. Yeah, I already watched the whole 3rd season.
Okay, so I watched the first episode. So I watched the first 2, watched the first episode of 3rd season, and then I kind of just watched All Hell Break Loose and thought, you know what, I'm just not gonna watch it.
Oh, so you haven't seen it?
Well, I haven't seen it, but I'm on Tumblr, so I know what happened.
Okay, so let's break it down episode by episode. So not, like, too specifically, but, like, I feel like in the first episode, the thing that I saw the most people having a problem with is sort of the...
Wait. Let's do a prologue. Because even before I watched them, even before it aired, there were people like me who were like, I don't really know that I can watch it because what's his name?
Which one?
Watson.
Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman has, I think him and Moffat, I think, have bonded somehow, maybe genetically in this weird mutated state, because he now is saying really offensive shit.
I was reading comments to an article talking about, like, basically asking, can you still enjoy Martin Freeman as an actor despite the things that he said? And a lot of people in the comments were saying he's always been an asshole. It's just that people are just now finding out.
Well, the thing to me was he wasn't always an asshole, but I thought it was, like, kind of, you know, like his thing, like, oh, I'm going to be like the jaded, like, kind of like an act. And so he was always kind of, you know, gruff or whatever, but then he started getting really personal, and he made a rape joke, and he started putting down the U.S. Sherlock, and specifically talked about
Lucy Liu. He said that she looked like a dog.
Yeah, it's so.
Apparently he's also very against, like, multiculturalism. And he's made comments about, you know, like, saying what's basically almost in support of racial profiling, like saying stuff along the lines of like, when did it become so bad to see someone in a beard and a turban and a backpack and say, oh, I think they might have a bomb or something, I'm paraphrasing, but along those lines. And it's like, oh no, don't say that.
Yeah, so it's not that everyone was just like blind to the fact that he was an asshole. I think most people were like me, who thought, oh, it's kind of like, because I do that too. I kind of have this persona of like, oh, I say asshole things, like say crazy things. I don't say shit like that, but it's kind of just like an air you put on.
Yeah.
I thought that was it, and then he started saying this stuff, and it's like you don't do that stuff even jokingly. He means this stuff.
Yeah. And well, apparently Benedict Cumberbatch has said some not so good things either. So.
Yeah, he's known for being like the nicest dude, but yeah, he said some questionable stuff too. And of course, people are still mad at him for playing Khan in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, but I don't know. Maybe it's because of the way he looks, and I don't want to be the type of person who judges someone on their looks, but he looks like he probably doesn't understand racism. Like if you were trying to explain to him like, oh, it's bad because he was this iconic person of color, he'd be like, what are you talking about?
I think he's probably an upper middle class white guy who just doesn't, who he seems like he'd be the kind of person who says, oh, I don't see color.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh gosh, okay.
Yeah, so given all that, people like me who do like the show and we're excited for it, we're like, oh, I want to hit play, but then their faces are going to come on the screen and I might puke on my monitor, and this is a plasma screen.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, because I feel like, how can I say this? Like, sometimes when you find out something, when an actor or a writer or director or whatever, you find out that their personal values or their personal opinions don't really mesh well with yours.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be hard to separate the art they've created from the person they are. Sometimes you can do it and sometimes you can't. And I feel like I can more easily separate Martin Freeman the man from John Watson the character than I can from Steven Moffat the man and the shows he's created. Do you get what I'm saying? Because with Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch, like, they are portraying a different character, so the things they say in the show is not their opinions, whereas Steven Moffat as a writer, the things the characters are saying are coming from him, so his opinions get interjected into that.
Yeah, I understand that. So it's not. I had some. I didn't watch the first show immediately because of that, but I was going to distance myself because I get that, and I have crazy opinions, and I also sell stuff with my name on. I also write stuff. I write some books sometimes, so I get that. I want people to separate my being an asshole from my really shitty work. But the Hobbit came out, right? The Desolation of Smaug, however they said it.
Yeah.
And even though what's his name again?
Martin Freeman.
Even though he said all those horrible things and it was kind of weighing down on me, I was like, well, I want to stay up on the fandom on Tumblr and get the inside jokes. I was going to go with the group of friends who happened to mostly be Chinese. And so we made an agreement. We're going to go on such a date. But I saw them a few days before, and one of them said, I'm sorry to cancel our plans, but we've decided we don't want to go after the things he said about Lucy Liu. I don't want to, support him in a movie. And I was like, I totally understand. I get that. No problem. That's fine. And so me and my, the white friends were like, we'll go another day. And I thought, no, we won't. We won't be going. We're gonna support our friends of color, because they were excited to see Lucy Liu play this iconic character, and it really does mean a lot. And then for someone who's also playing that character to be so disgusting toward it, and it it just be so racist.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, it was real, it was an eye-opening experience that I need to stick by the people that I love.
Yeah. Just the things, what he said about her was just, it's inexcusable. Like,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
So I didn't go see that movie, but I was going to watch Sherlock because I thought, I'm not actually paying money for it, you know. Not to say that I get it off the internet, but I get it off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched the first episode, and then I started reading all this stuff about everything they've been saying and the people talking about it. I thought, I'm just over. I can't. There comes a point when you can't actually even concentrate on the episode, you know?
Yeah. So, do you want me to fill you in briefly on what happened?
Well, let's talk. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the craziness of Sherlock, because it's not that he just screwed up Doctor Who. He's also having a fine time.
Yeah.
Really fucking up Sherlock.
I feel like, as far as the first episode goes, and you can talk about this too because you've seen it.
Yeah.
I feel like the thing that I saw most people complaining about was what's called queer baiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is basically sort of like where, like, a show sort of keeps constantly, sometimes going out of their way to hint at two characters of the same sex possibly having some potential feelings for, like, romantic feelings for each other, and then never following through on it. Because, they're not gay, they're just friends, you know?
Yeah.
And it lures people in because they think, oh, it could happen, and the showrunners have no intention of ever making it happen. So that's something that's been going on with Sherlock, I would say, since the very first season, but this particular episode made it so much.
But hey, before we go on though, the queer baiting though, I would say in Sherlock, it comes naturally in Sherlock, because Sherlock, any, you know, elitist college student will tell you, yeah, there's a lot of queer undertones. Like, if you read the original material, yeah, it's there's a lot of queer baiting in it, but you know, in that time it wasn't queer baiting. It was, this is how we're gonna write it because we can't.
But I feel like, I mean, I don't know the intentions behind the acting choices and the choices that were made in the writing and the directing, but it feels like they're sort of purposefully or going out of their way to play it up. You know, it's one thing one thing if it just incidentally happens and it wasn't intentional. It's another thing when you purposefully try to achieve that, you know?
But let's think of it this way. In the case of Sherlock, if you were given the show and said, okay, you're going to write Sherlock, and you know that there's all this queer subtext, and you know the intention of it, you can say, either I'm going to stay true to the original material and keep this as subtext and try to convey that kind of relationship like the original material, or I'm actually going to go for it and bring it out of subtext.
Yes.
You have
but the thing is from what I've read, the people behind the show, the creators and stuff, they don't acknowledge it. They act like, oh no, the fans are just seeing what they want to see. These guys are just really good friends. The fans, it's their own fantasy, you know? So
they say that, but they also send them on dates and constantly have people just confuse them for being gay. They say, I mean, that's the big point.
But that's making a joke of it, though.
Yeah, but they say, oh, you guys just think that they're a couple, you see that, but then they actually write people in the show who think it or see it. So either, you know, that's intentional and they're just being assholes to us, or they're literally putting characters in there to mock us. So we're viewing it and they're showing us.
I think part of it, they probably think that it's humorous. It's like, oh, ha ha ha, people are constantly misjudging them as being a couple. They're not really a couple. Ha 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 ha. Funny misunderstandings. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, no. It's to a degree, I would almost say it's insulting. Especially, especially when in the first episode, when Mrs. Hudson, sweet Mrs. Hudson, happily congratulating Watson because she thinks that him and Sherlock were a couple and they've gotten back together and they're going to get married. And John gets so angry, like, and he just shouts at her, "I am not gay!" And it's like that particular point is what I saw a lot of people like focusing on, and
Yeah.
and saying the fact that Watson seemed so like angry and frustrated that someone would assume he was gay is could lead someone to believe that Watson or the writers of the show have some problems with homophobia. And I feel like they could have played that scene to make it where it doesn't have as much homophobic connotations. Because I feel like if Watson had just said, "I am not dating Sherlock," or "I am not in love with Sherlock," or something like that, that puts his anger and frustration to the fact that somebody thinks he's dating Sherlock, not to the fact that someone thinks he's dating a man. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but as I watched it, what it really seemed like when, the camera focuses on him and he yells, "I'm not gay," it really came across to me as that was supposed to be toward the viewer.
Mm.
He wasn't actually saying that to her character.
Yeah. Which, okay, then they're giving major mixed signals then. Because if
intentionally, it is queer baiting, yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're intentionally giving mixed signals. It's okay, so you didn't see the second episode. I will just tell you, it felt like pointless filler.
Well, the first one felt like pointless filler. Someone asked me, "Oh, you watched it, what'd you think?" And I said, "Oh, it kind of felt like they just had to use the whole time to like reset everything, so nothing really happened."
Yeah. Well, the second episode was even worse, I think. It was John and Mary's wedding, basically.
Yeah.
And most of the episode was Sherlock giving his best man speech, which again was full of potential, queer baiting stuff.
You know what I thought was funny though? They seem to go out of their way to make Sherlock approve of Watson's relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas in other retellings and even in the source material, he was not.
Wow. That brings up another speaking of the source material. So the third episode was easily hands down the best episode of the season. And I feel like it was the best episode of the season because
the other two sucked.
Well, that, and I feel like what would you call it? The tone, the plotting of it was more similar to previous seasons. Because I feel like in the first and second season, the episodes worked really well as sort of a standalone thing to where you could have not seen any of the other episodes, sit down and watch this one episode and understand everything that was going on without really needing knowledge of anything that came before it, right?
Yeah, because each one was kind of like one of the whole books in itself.
Exactly. So this season, it felt like the first episode relied heavily on the viewer having a lot of knowledge as to what happened in the previous seasons and how everybody was related to everybody, stuff like that. The second episode relied largely, because it was John and Mary's wedding, so it relied largely on you having seen the first episode to know that, hey, they're getting married and how they met and, stuff like that. And the third episode could have worked as a standalone episode. Like, it was very like, this is the beginning, this is the middle, this is the end. You don't need to know anything that came before this. This is the episode. Not saying it didn't have its problems, but, it worked better as a standalone episode. So the third episode, do you want me to tell you what happens?
I trust me. I've been on.
Okay. So we find out.
Wait. I haven't watched the episode as in I turned it on and watched it, but I've watched it in GIFs.
Yeah. So you know that Mary turns out to be she's basically faked her identity. She was like an assassin
which I thought was cool. I thought that was pretty interesting.
It was, but I will say, Mary's storyline is basically she went from this like ruthless assassin to falling in love with Watson, getting married, settling down, having a baby.
Yeah.
Why does this sound familiar?
Yeah. And
Okay.
no offense to Watson because Sherlock does love him and they are gay together. But who would fall in love with Watson?
Okay, so the reason I brought this up is because you mentioned something about the source material, and like
Yeah.
Sherlock didn't really like Watson's wife, I guess, in the source material. So I don't know, I haven't read any Sherlock books, but I read somebody else saying that in the third episode, the big bad guy, his name is Magnuson, and he's based off of a character from the source material who I think they said was named Milverton, something like that. And basically, in the source material, from what this person said, he was canonically shot and killed by a woman. In this third episode, Sherlock kills him. And this person was saying that basically it was the Irene Adler material that
Yeah.
they said that based on what they made Mary be, she could have been the female character that killed the bad guy in the source material, but she got the Irene Adler treatment in that she needed Sherlock to rescue her. So Sherlock got changed into the one who killed the bad guy.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's Moffat's grubby hands all over it.
Yeah. There's no hope for any female character in there.
Yeah.
And oh my god, imagine if they decided to make a character actually queer. It would probably be the most offensive, cartoonish person.
Well, no, they had someone and they de-gayed her. It was Irene Adler.
But well, you can say that. But if they de-gayed her, did she really count?
Well, she counted briefly in the beginning of the episode.
She wasn't. She wasn't even a real person. It was that whole fake. Oh, women wants to get a dick in them. So I mean, as much as I dislike these guys and the things they've been saying and writing, I I get it. I get that they're privileged dudes who don't really understand a lot. Obviously, Moffat is fucking stupid as shit. He doesn't get anything. But the thing that makes me so mad about all this is the way that the fandom reacts to it. They all, well, not all of them obviously, but especially in the Martin Freeman case, they just took up arms to defend him. It's that's what drives me crazy, especially because so many of these people are girls, young girls and older girls, and I understand. If you like, you can still like him. You can still like him and think he's cute and draw pictures of him and write fanfic of him and go to his movies and stuff. But you can also say that thing he said was wrong and there's no excuse for it. But people don't think those things can exist together.
Yeah, just because you like something doesn't mean you can't criticize it for the problems that it has.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a very divisive issue in the fandom. Like either you are just so like blindly loyal that you just put your fingers in your ears and la 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 la, you don't want to hear any negative criticism, or you're just becoming so alienated and disillusioned with the fandom and with the actors behind it and the writers behind it that you're almost ready to give up. It's a very, I feel like it's a very divisive issue in the fandoms.
Yeah, and yet it still seems like still the majority is we're all going to keep watching.
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter how mad you get, or no matter how creative you have to be to excuse everything, we're all gonna keep watching. So at one point, it's like you guys are on the same side. You're arguing, but you both are still watching the show. So just talk about liking the show and let this be separate issues that you actually are critical about.
Yeah. I don't mean I'm gonna bring back up Doctor Who for a second.
Okay.
Because we were talking about like the Sherlock fandom being divided over this, and I feel like it's the same in like the Doctor Who fandom. There are a lot of people who have been watching Doctor Who for years and years, like the older episodes from like the 60s and 70s and 80s, and they say that they grew up with the show, they love the show so much, and they don't want to stop watching it, but with the direction it's going, they feel like they're gonna have to, and they really don't want to stop watching it because they love this show, but the road that it's going down, they don't like it anymore. And that's really sad when when somebody claims to have a lot of love for this world, this fictional world, and these fictional characters, comes in and basically turns it into something that you don't even recognize anymore. That's sad. That's like the destruction of a fandom. And when the new actor that is going to play the 12th Doctor was announced, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, okay, I might actually start watching Doctor Who again just to see this actor," because he was also in another show, I think it was called The Thick of It, where he played this really foul-mouthed like government worker, just like really angry and foul-mouthed government worker. And a lot of people like him, like this actor from that show. So they said, well, I might start watching Doctor Who again, but I'm scared that Moffat is going to ruin it. And people were saying that Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, a lot of people think that as the time went on, that Moffat basically just ruined that character. And it's sad when that happens. I think it's sad because it's like, it almost feels like a betrayal when you have someone coming in and saying that because he said this about Sherlock too, that he, is a big fan of Sherlock. And when they come in and they claim to be a fan of something, and then they just sort of crap all over the fandom and disregard canon, it's like, it feels like a betrayal.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm used to complaining about these things, and then I think, well, what's the solution? And really, the only solution is if there was a widespread boycott, because it's all about money, and they would fire Moffat immediately if people stopped watching.
Yeah.
But nobody will, and I'm not saying that in a judgmental way, because there's so much stuff that I watch and that I read that I know that we should be boycotting, but I want I love this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And then when I decide, okay, I'm gonna start boycotting some stuff, it's like, well, where do you draw the line?
I know. It makes me like just want to completely not find out anything about any celebrity's personal life ever, because I don't want it to ruin my perception of like them as a character or something,
But like, it's not even that. It's not because I'm not like a big celebrity person. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know anything about Martin Freeman's personal life or whatever, but I followed the show, and because I followed the show, I found out that he said, while talking about the show, that he's a huge racist defender.
Speaking of his personal life, did you know the woman who plays Mary is his wife in real life?
I did not know that.
And I saw this, I don't remember who said it, but I saw this post on Tumblr that was like, because Steven Moffat gives off this like air that he thinks he is so clever. So somebody on Tumblr posted, it was like, John Watson needs a wife. Martin Freeman has a wife in real life. Sure, we need a child actor to play Sherlock. I have a son. Sherlock needs a dog. I have a dog. I'm so clever. This writing stuff is easy.
It's nepotism. Okay.
Yeah.
So, awful. So do you want to get to the WTF and the squeeze?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are going to be kind of compact this episode, because we've been gone for so long, and also because so many shows have just started. So we're kind of going to jump around of WTF and squeeze about a bunch of shows. So this is going to be a WTF squee orgy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to start something light? Let's talk about RuPaul's Drag Race. It'll be a good palate cleanser.
Yes. I'm so excited for the show to come back.
So am I. And it doesn't it feel like we've waited a lot longer for this season than we have for any others?
I feel like I read somebody else saying that they think maybe it's starting so much later because they don't want to compete with the Olympics, which to a degree I can understand that, but still, February 24th, that seems like such a long way off.
Yeah. So I've been trying to avoid spoilers, but there's been one that I think I'm going to become obsessed with. Of course, it has to do with the American Idol guy.
Oh.
So you fill people in, because I have a feeling you can remember his name.
Yeah. So
yeah, you did that.
I don't remember exactly when he auditioned, but it was I don't know, probably like the early to mid 2000s. There was
It was years ago because Super Junior was still together.
Yeah.
Because in the K-pop fandom, it was a big deal because he looks exactly like Hee-chul.
Well, I wouldn't say exactly, but close enough.
If he was white, he would look exactly like him. So people are like, oh my god, the white Hee-chul.
I feel like it was more the attitude coupled with the appearance than just the appearance itself, but
it was a lot of the appearance, though.
So yeah, it was like the early to mid 2000s. I was definitely in college, so it had to have been sometime between 2004 and 2008. This teenager named Danny Noriega auditioned for American Idol, and he got on to like the voting rounds and stuff, and he hung on for a good while, but he was known for being very sassy. And I say that in the most complimentary way possible. He gave a lot of lip back to the judges. And, you know, like, the one he's most known for is, like shaking his head and going, some people weren't liking it.
Yeah.
So, after American Idol, I mean, I didn't really follow him, but I briefly remember, like, he, I guess, had, like, a bit of a YouTube following. I think it was YouTube. It might have been, like, Stick Cam or something like that, but he had a bit of a following online. And, you know, after, like, a year or two of his American Idol season ending, I never heard anything about him because I didn't follow him. And then he randomly shows up in RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah. Like, I saw, it was one of those internet videos. I don't know if they've aired it on TV, but they're, like, going through the queens, and they show him, and, like, before he even opens his mouth, I was like, it's Hee-chul!
He said something like that. He was on American Idol, and then he looked like a lesbian Jonas brother, I think is what he said.
Mm-hmm. I think the Jonas brothers look like lesbian So, do you know, how long has he been doing drag? It kind of like, my first impression was, okay, he's dead set on being a celebrity, and he's known for being really flamboyant and gay, and what's the show where you're definitely going to get on if you're really flamboyant? RuPaul's Drag Race.
I feel like this season especially, it feels like they went out of their way to find a lot of queens that have that are multi-talented. Because it felt like last season there was this big divide between like the pageant queens and the comedy queens, and either you were a pageant queen pretty girl or you were a comedy queen funny girl. And as far as the previews that we've seen for this coming season, it feels like they tried to find a good mix of like well-balanced, well-rounded queens, like queens that are funny and pretty and can do comedy and they can sing, and you know, so I hope that it's not going to be quite such a divide, because last season that divide was very like, there were certain queens that were just really nasty and mean about it, and
but it was exciting in the fandom though.
Yeah, although it led for a lot of the Untucked episodes felt really scripted.
Yeah,
I feel like they were trying to manufacture some drama when they could have just let it be, and it probably would have happened on its own.
Yeah. So, let's take a guess, because it even started. How long do you think he's going to be in the show?
Oh God, I don't even know.
The American Idol guy. Do you think he could win?
I mean, I don't know anything. I don't know what he's like. I don't know.
But just based on your gut.
I don't have an opinion yet.
I say episode 3. You have to say one. Whoever wins gets a sticker.
God, I don't know. I'm bad at this stuff. How many episodes are there?
I don't know. You keep track of that.
I don't know. 7?
Okay, I say 3, you say 7. It's recorded. Let's see who gets the sticker. Okay, so you name another show first.
Okay. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yay!
So are you all completely caught up?
Oh, of course. I have the Marvel blog and everything, so I can't log on to the internet unless I've seen it because of spoilers.
I have 2 things to say.
Okay.
1, they Frankensteined Coulson.
Yeah.
And 2, Sky was some magic powers shield baby that they thought was like a threat or something, and then they whisked her off to either be studied or to an orphanage or something. But then, if that's the case, if she had some sort of ability or power, where has it been for the last 20 plus years?
Yeah. Okay, so that being said, I think we're a good couple to discuss this type of show because you come from a background of no comic books and I come from a background of too many comic books. So the whole Frankenstein thing and the special baby who might be an alien thing.
Oh, is that what it is? Is she an alien?
Maybe.
So I'm not gonna get my android cyborg Coulson, but I might get an alien.
Yeah, and
I wanted Coulson to be an android cyborg so bad.
But here's the thing, that's not really common in superhero genre. Like, it does happen, of course. But this whole Frankenstein thing, these two things that happened, I can understand how it'd be like a little weird for people who are in the superhero genre thing. But it's just like, oh, that old thing when they said it. I was like, oh, of course, they need a powerful character, but she has to be of an adult age. So we're gonna say, oh yeah, they found your body somewhere, and then you got put in an orphanage. That's like it's a cliche.
What I think is weird though is like, I mean, I may have misunderstood the episode, but it made it seem as if S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to bring her in to, I don't know, study her or something, but I don't know if it was S.H.I.E.L.D. or some other force was trying to get her or kill her, so that's why they hid her at an orphanage. Did I understand that right?
Because I was so confused when I was watching it. I was like, wait, I thought, oh wait. So at the end, yeah, that kind of what it seems to be, which kind of doesn't make any sense because if it's S.H.I.E.L.D., and I don't know if
because if it was a force outside of S.H.I.E.L.D. that was trying to kidnap her or kill her, wouldn't S.H.I.E.L.D. be able to protect her? So wouldn't you want to take her to S.H.I.E.L.D.? So that's what makes me think it was S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to kill her.
Well, the idea was that she was presumed dead, so no one was going to come after her because they thought she was dead, so they were going to just let her have a normal life, whatever, but watch over her. Which, I mean, this is a different universe, and I keep telling people that there's no mutants in this. Deadpool's not going to be in it. It's a different universe. This is a different S.H.I.E.L.D. But like in the S.H.I.E.L.D. we all know from Marvel, like that would not have happened. They'd be like, ooh, let's put her in a storage facility. Yeah, so it's really confusing, and I get the feeling that because S.H.I.E.L.D. Is kind of known. I mean, it's pretty much like any real world organization. Yeah. It's seen as both bad and good, and it has people working for it that are both bad and good. Yeah. And it seems like in the show they're really trying to force the point that S.H.I.E.L.D. is good guys, because it's a TV show and they kind of don't want to, boggle down people with ideas of gray areas.
Yeah.
So it seemed a little forced, like, oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted her to have a good life, when really, if there was really an organization like S.H.I.E.L.D., it would be like it is in the comic books, and they would not give a shit about whether she had a normal life or not.
What I don't get is what made S.H.I.E.L.D. interested her in the first place. Like,
because she's supposedly an alien. Maybe.
But she looks human, and the only aliens, quote unquote aliens, that they've mentioned so far in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are the Asgardians and the other ones. I can't remember what they're called. Chitauri or something like that?
Chitauri, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so if the only one...
Wait. In this universe, technically, that's the only ones that they name, but they have mentioned that there's like 7 realms of aliens, of what we would consider aliens.
Yeah.
That they know of, and we haven't really seen all of them, so we don't really know what they're like. But also in the source material, there's tons of different aliens that they might be starting to introduce on the show, mm-hmm. because it's going to start being involved in the movies where they start dealing with a bunch of different aliens.
Okay. But
so this might be their way of leading up to.
Yeah. But I was going to say, like, out of the 2 aliens that we've seen, the ones that look human are the Asgardians. And we've seen another Asgardian on this show before, and he is basically nearly immortal. Like, he hadn't aged in like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So if she's a human-looking alien, that would lead me to think, okay, maybe she's Asgardian, but she doesn't have any of the, quote-unquote powers of an Asgardian that we know of. So what is she?
Well, there are other aliens that look like human, but there are also other aliens that can look like human. And we have like Hulking. He's a really popular character right now because he's in this big gay romance, of course, that the fans love. And he thought he was human until he was like in his teens, and he found out, oh no, I'm half alien. So that kind of shit happens all the time. It's not going to make any sense. That's just the way the genre goes. Of course, then, I say alien because they've been trying so hard to not involve mutants, because it would be so easy to say that she's a mutant, because even though she doesn't have any powers yet, a lot of mutants don't show their powers until like after puberty or maybe sometimes in adulthood. But because they're not putting mutants in this universe, and they have put aliens, I'm just gonna assume that. I would say if I could take like a wild guess, if I'm right about this, I get another sticker. I would say she's probably like half Skrull, because like Hulk, that's what hulking is, and he appeared to be human for most of his life, and then he started going through changes.
Okay. Speaking of not having mutants, was it? I don't know. I can't remember if it was the most recent episode or not, but the episode where they went back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. Science Academy, and the two students that were building that big weather machine, I guess is what it was. At the very end, when they're taking one of them away, the one that lived, and he touches his finger to the glass, and he basically causes ice crystals to form. Is that implying that something that they did with that machine has given him the power to freeze things?
Yeah, and
wouldn't that make him a mutant then?
Well, here's the thing. In Marvel, there are mutants, and then there are mutants.
Okay.
Because there's genetic mutants, and there's people who have been mutated.
Okay.
And there's a lot of racism. Racism, because the people born with a mutant gene are considered a different race. So there's a lot of discrimination involved in that, and it's that big thing. So even though it would make so much more sense if they would just put mutants in the series, obviously whatever happened, it mutated him, because the only mutants they have are ones that have been mutated. And it's killing me. Why can't we have mutants?
It would make things a lot easier on them. Yeah. Well, wait a second though. They had that guy who could make fire. Remember? I think he was Asian. Yeah, but they kind of explained that as like, oh, we kind of don't know. So I thought, oh, maybe it's leaving a chance over for mutants. But then since then, they've been trying so hard to be like, no mutants, only the guy was clearly a mutant.
Well, maybe he had been mutated later in life.
Ugh. Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so let's go to a bit of a downer. Let's American Horror Story.
This is a downer for you?
This is a downer for me, and so like trigger warning. I'm going to talk about Kyle, the guy in it who has a history of being sexually abused. Yeah. So of course I love the show. I've been enjoying it. It's been super exciting, but I've been kind of like biting my nails as I'm watching it to see what they're gonna do with his molestation story.
It seems like they've just completely brushed it off.
And that's why I'm saying this is a downer, because it made me really uncomfortable. Because not only he was molested by his mother his whole life, and then he dies, and the witches bring him back, and he's not really capable of speech or clear thought. And then two of the witches that brought him back started sleeping with him, and to me, I mean, that was very uncomfortable, because he wasn't in a position to say yes or no, and so it seemed like it was more molestation on his part, and since they, well, not on his part, but
yeah, I get what you're saying.
And since this was part of his story before, I thought, oh, they're going to address that. They're going to show that it's really hurting him. He's going to rage out about it because, you know, he would go into these rages where he would just get upset and confused. And then all of a sudden they kind of fixed him a little where he can now speak and comprehend things, even though he kind of has trouble with it. And so in the last episode, he's now still sleeping with one of the witches, and the other one gets upset and says, you know, I thought we were going to share him, and now you're just like in love with him. And she said, oh, you know, whatever, I don't care. And she goes, so the other one goes, okay, well, then I'm just going to blow him then. Okay, fine. So she gets down on her knees to go to blow him. He repels, looks disgusted, shoves her off, and I thought, oh, good, we're finally going to address this. And he goes, no, I love the other one. And he goes to her and he hugs her. And the rest of the episode is just about how much they're in love, and they run away together. And it's like, oh, no, this is a problem.
So as far as the first time where the two girl witches have sex with him, like they share him.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, doesn't Zoe walk in on Kyle and Madison humping like rabbits, basically?
Well, they weren't humping. They were in coitus. So yeah.
Yes. And then it's Madison's idea that they can share him. Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of thought part of the reason that happened, that Kyle had sex with Madison, is, and I feel like it was brought back up. I think it was in the most recent episode where Kyle says that he has these like thoughts in his head that he can't control, and like they're not him and stuff. And I think that the show is very vaguely trying to imply that because they pieced him back together with different people's body parts, his mind is his, but the rest of his body isn't. Do you get what I'm saying? So like,
I hadn't thought of it that way, but okay.
That like, you know, that if let's say for instance that, because we know for a fact that the penis they put on him was not his own. So
yeah,
if that penis belonged to one of the rapists, then it could be implying that the penis has a mind of its own, and even though his mind is still his, he can't control the urges.
Well, wait. Because no. Because even if he was aroused, which he obviously was, because they showed him having sex with them, even when he was back in his like comatose state. He wasn't really comatose. Yeah. He obviously was aroused, but when we're talking about real life, when we talk legally, just because a guy is aroused doesn't mean that it doesn't qualify as rape. Mm-hmm. It what matters is what the consent was.
Yes,
and
I totally agree. I completely agree with that. But considering that Kyle, well, I don't know how to. I don't want to I'm trying to think of the best way to say this without sounding like a rape apologist or something. Even though Kyle couldn't speak, we don't know necessarily who made the first move between him and Madison, because we didn't see that. Like, if he was the one that initiated, say, a kiss with her or something.
But would that even matter? Because we're talking about ability to consent, and he was at a childlike state. Yeah. And so, because you hear a lot of cases in pedophilia, well, the child came on to me. That doesn't matter. They don't have the ability to consent. It doesn't matter who moved first.
Mm. It's a tricky, tough issue.
It would be more. It'd be easier to justify if the girls thought he was in his right mind, but they knew very much that he wasn't capable of deciding anything, because they were treating him
like a doll,
and not like a little kid. Like, they were reading him stories. He was playing little kid games on the computer, and they were really treating him like a child, and then they would have sex with him. That's not great. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to address that, but they haven't.
I really thought, like, when Kyle was quote unquote fixed and he could speak again, I really thought he would at least try to explain to Zoe why he killed his mother.
Yeah.
Because he's got to know that she probably thinks she doesn't know why he killed his mother, that she thinks he just did it, like, just to kill her. You know, if I was him and I suddenly could speak again and could, like, it, to
Be coherent.
coherent, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. If I was him and I could suddenly speak again and be coherent again, the first thing I would do is go to the girl who saw my mother's dead body and me covered in blood and say, this is what happened.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they do address it, but so far it hasn't
Well, it's
been
almost over, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. But I mean, address it at some point. At some point, make it emphatically clear it wasn't okay. But they haven't yet. And the problem is with me is that the viewership, like, this is weird because this is a scary show. It's kind of an adult show.
yeah.
And yet the cast is made up mostly of women and really great actresses who play really compelling different roles every season. And so most of the fandom is young girls.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't assume with a show that's an adult horror show, but they're young girls, and so I think you have to take a responsibility for that, because like what we saw in the first season, he played a troubled boy who ended up raping his girlfriend's mom, and a lot of the fandom was like, oh, that's okay, he just still loves her so much, and it was just made to be okay. And now that this is happening, I'm watching the fandom, and these young girls that are they completely ignore what's going on, and saying things like, oh, it's so romantic, I wish that was my story, they're so cute together, all this stuff. And they can still be cute together. The girl, you can still say she made a mistake, she didn't understand, whatever, and still work through that to the point where they can still be a couple. But it's inexcusable, and they really had an opportunity here to discuss men and the being molested, and how this is a real issue, and how it's not okay, and it's still rape. If this had been reversed, I mean, I wouldn't even say if it was reversed, people would be upset because it was reversed, and people still weren't upset because they were just like, oh, look at the cute couple. Oh, so he raped her mom, whatever.
Yeah. I feel like I cannot speak from any personal experience on this issue, but I feel like, or I would think that somebody like Kyle, who had been continuously molested by his mother throughout his childhood, his adolescence, his teenage years, even if he found a girl that he personally found attractive, and even if he, sexually desired her, being in a sexual act, I would think would be very triggering for him, and would, be almost a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I can
they
see
seem
that,
like it wasn't at all.
I can also see how, because I mean, the fact of the matter is a lot of young men get molested, a lot more than we actually recognize, and a lot of the time they're just socialized to get over it, so it may not necessarily be triggering, and even to him it might not be a big deal. Now that he's out of it, he's like, oh, I like this girl, okay, I don't want to talk about the molestation because that'll make me seem weak. I mean, there's a lot of justification for the way he is acting, and for the way the girls are acting, because they didn't know about the molestation, obviously didn't understand it's not okay to have sex with someone who is not in a position to consent. But I mean, it's such a big point of his character. The show there has to be some end point for it. They just keep showing him being molested, and they straight up say, look at how much he's suffering because he's been molested. What's the end point?
Well, we have to remember it's a Ryan Murphy show. He's not necessarily the best at following through on all of the plot points he brings up.
Yeah. But there's so many other people involved. Someone needs to raise their hand in a meeting and say, before we end this.
Just put like a public service announcement at the very end of the last episode.
Well, you mentioned that he said, oh, I can't really control the thoughts in my head. It came off to me as that he was talking about violence, because then he starts to look like he's going to choke her.
Yeah.
What I think they're going to do is he's going to end up killing her, like they may be being stuck. Yeah, I think that's the only logical way I think they could actually address this. like they're being sexual and he gets triggered and he kills her out of anger,
Mm.
or just being in a psychotic state because of being triggered.
Yeah. The next episode's the finale, isn't it?
I think there's 2 more.
2 more? Okay. Because I know even though they went to Epcot, they're supposed to be back in the next episode. So.
Yeah, I love the jokes and the fandom around that, like they escape to Witch Mountain. And...
but I was gonna say, like, because I recently, well, I should say a few months ago in November, I watched the first season and I had never seen it, and it struck me while watching that season that in all 3 of these seasons, there has been at least one woman who has been raped.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's obviously a recurring theme or a plot device that they're trying to use, and it's like, like it struck me as odd, like in every single season there's been at least one woman who's been raped.
Well, of course, we're also talking about the genre of horror.
Yeah.
And in horror, women being molested is a big part of it. It's so much so that there's a whole subgenre of horror that's called rape revenge, and so I mean you can say, oh well, so I think, I don't know, it kind of, they've handled it mostly, I think, pretty well in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't been like, oh, this girl was raped and then she's fine. They're never fine afterward, and it's really horrific. They never downplay how horrific it is, and it is a part of the genre. So it'd be like saying, oh, there's a lot of spaceships in this sci-fi thing.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything else? Because we've been on this one for a while.
No, you're into South Park, right? Let's talk about South Park.
Okay. So this particular issue I have of South Park actually happened. It was a 3-episode trilogy that happened in November. They were doing a parody of both Black Friday shopping and Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
So, did you see this episode or did you just hear about it?
No, yeah, I watched them.
Okay. So, here's my beef with this episode, okay?
Okay. First of all, you understand that they want you to have beef with it, right?
Oh. But my beef with it is that it is something that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Okay. So Butters, throughout these episodes, keeps complaining about seeing tons of penis on Game of Thrones. And
well, he calls them wieners, which is funny.
Okay. Well, he keeps going on and on and on about all these wieners that he sees on Game of Thrones, and everybody says there's dragons, but there's no dragons. He just keeps seeing penis everywhere. And I really thought, okay, they're gonna make a joke. They're gonna reveal that Butters was accidentally watching, like, gay porn, or maybe Spartacus. I sincerely thought they were gonna say he was accidentally watching gay porn, or Spartacus, or something like that, just from the amount of penis that he kept saying he was seeing. But then he goes to George R.R. Martin's house, who's the author of the novels that Game of Thrones was based on. And even George R.R. Martin is going on and on about all the penis that's in Game of Thrones. And it's like, have the South Park writers been watching a different version of Game of Thrones than I have? Because there's like no penis in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, certainly after watching Spartacus, you're like, what penis? I thought it was funny because to me it was like a depiction of, before he actually speaks to J.R.R. Martin, it was kind of a depiction of a young guy, a boy his age who is kind of like no homo,
Yeah.
So every time he sees a penis, it becomes like, I've seen 50,000 penises. So to him, it was like overwhelming. And he says one thing that I thought was pretty interesting. He said, he was complaining about, he was saying it's not only that there's lots of wieners, but there's also that they're all soft. And even after there's a guy with a really pretty lady, and it should be hard, it's not. It's still soft. And I stopped and I thought, that's actually a good observation, that you show women in these really sexual ways, and we're even at a point now where in these HBO shows you show men naked, but to even if it wasn't sexual, to show a man who had an erection would not pass at all.
But the thing about that though is from my recollection, Game of Thrones has only shown a male full frontal like twice.
Yeah. No, I think it was like I think it was 3.
Really? Because I know one was Hodor in the first season, and I only remember that because people were complaining. Women were complaining, like, we said we wanted more male nudity, but you give us Hodor?
Which is, shut up.
Yeah. So one was Hodor, and I believe the other one was Theon. That's the only 2 I remember.
No, because those 2 dudes, there was that gay prince or whatever.
There was no nudity with them.
Yeah, when they were in bed together, they were.
Nope, they both had pants on.
What?
Yeah, they both had pants on, and I think one of them was shirtless, and the other one had a shirt on, but it was like unfastened.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought, like I said, I thought the whole thing was like, a kid his age and the no homo thing, and then when you got to the author's house and he was like, yeah, penis, 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 I was like, oh no, you guys actually think there were lots of penises. There weren't.
No, it distracted me from the episodes. Like,
yeah.
Because I was with them until they got to George R. Martin's house. Because I thought, like I said, I thought it's going to be a joke. Butters has been watching the wrong show. But obviously, they were just reaffirming what Butters thought. And it's like, no. What show are you watching that you think Game of Thrones is just penis, 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 penis? It's not.
Yeah.
If anything, it's boobs, 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 badge, badge, badge. Like.
Usually they're pretty spot on, but sometimes you realize that they are just it's just guys. And what's funny is well, not funny, haha, but they had that one documentary about South Park and how they write it, and they showed the writers' room, and they have one girl writer in it, and I was surprised, but then I thought, oh, don't be surprised. Try not to be surprised. And they interviewed her, and at one point she said, sometimes I just don't get their humor, and I just have to say, okay, if you think that's funny, then we're just going to go along with it. And then I was waiting for her to say, and then sometimes, I just got to say, look, this is actually funny, and they go along with me. But there wasn't that second part, so it kind of felt like she was a token higher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And no matter what she said, because as a female, she should be there and say, okay, as a female, I'm telling you, this isn't funny to a wide range of audience. It's funny to you guys who, not to be offensive, you all are the same person. You're that white middle class guy who wasn't popular in school, yada, yada, yada. You guys are all the same person. I'm the only one here who actually has a different worldview. So it's funny to you specific people, and I get why that would be overruled a lot of the time, but it shouldn't always be.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my big like WTF. Like it made no sense.
Yeah. But maybe they're gonna show more penis now just to retaliate.
Maybe,
so, yeah,
I don't know.
Have any other shows?
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow, okay.
Yeah. Did you stop watching that? I know at some point.
Yeah, like on the 3rd episode.
Well, I kept watching it, so. I mean, I don't really have a ton to say about it. Just that I've been watching it.
Okay, well, good to know.
I do want to say, I think, Orlando Jones, who plays the police officer.
Yeah, he's great.
His Tumblr is hilarious.
Yeah, it's so good.
They recently introduced his character's daughter on the show, who is in a wheelchair.
Oh, really?
Yes. She apparently got hit by a car or something.
Oh my god. Why does every person in a wheelchair have to be paralyzed? There's like a billion diseases that put people in wheelchairs. Does it always have to be the goddamn car accident?
I mean, it seems like they made it a car accident in order to use it as something to make his character feel guilty about.
Oh, wait. you're not saying that she's used as a plot device, are you?
Well, in the most recent episode, she got possessed by a demon.
Oh, well, yeah, it's Sleepy Hollow. I can see that.
But she's only been in a couple episodes, so I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But the girl who plays his daughter played, I believe it's her, played Rue in the Hunger Games.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Too bad they couldn't actually hire
Yeah.
a disabled character.
Yeah.
Or a person to play the character.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that she's well known as being part of the race argument on Hunger Games, because the leading actress should have been black, and so people said, well, at least Rue was black, and now she's playing an able-bodied person who becomes disabled even though she's able-bodied.
Yeah.
So super not great.
No.
So do you have another show that we can end on a lighter note?
Teen Wolf?
Okay, yeah, Teen Wolf. I gave up on that last season. I thought I gave up on, because I gave up on watching it episode by episode, and I thought, in a year and a half, maybe I'll sit down and catch up on it.
So, I think they've only had like 2 episodes so far of their seasons confuse me. So it's the second half of season 3, I think, is what they're on.
So I don't know from watching the GIFs or whatever, but are they still doing their queer baiting thing?
I wouldn't say so far. By far, I think the thing they queerbait with the most on that show is Derek and Styles. Those characters haven't had any interaction with each other yet.
See, I mean, that's because in most shows the queer baiting is, oh, we'll show these guys together and they'll have little moments, but they'll never get together. Where the weird thing is with Teen Wolf, the queer baiting is that on the show
they're never together.
They're less together now that they're aware of the fandom. But like off the show, they really tease it a lot. They're like, well, maybe we'll actually get them together, which I think is way worse.
Yeah. I don't particularly know where this rumor started or even how much validity it has, but I read there's some new character that's gonna come onto the show that's gonna be a deputy. And apparently there are fans of the show who are theorizing that this deputy character could be a love interest for Styles. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you guys, that's wishful thinking.
Like, why did they jump to that conclusion?
I have no idea. I just like randomly read it. I was reading this article of like fandom update news kind of stuff, and it was just this tiny little blurb that said there was going to be this new character called Deputy Parrish, and that some fans think it might be a love interest for Styles, and that because there was some sort of like teaser that said that Styles is going to lose one of his like a certain status this season, and some people thought it was his virginity, but then these fans who think this deputy is going to be a love interest, they think the status he's going to lose is his heterosexuality or something. I don't know where people are getting this from. That's just a theory that some people have, and it's like, I think it's wishful thinking. It is purely wishful thinking.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, because the problem with the show is the people that run the show have said, oh yeah, maybe we'll get them together, and oh yeah, he could be bisexual, we never rule that out, that whatever. So I would say, oh well, they said he's bisexual, so I can understand that if they had different ideas for Derek and they don't actually want them to be together, they'll go along with Styles being bisexual, and so they'll bring in another character for his love interest. But because they've also said, oh yeah, maybe we'll get Derek and Styles together, I'm thinking it's all just bullshit.
Yeah. I think I remember reading somewhere once that the guy who created the show / writes it, I guess he writes it, I'm not sure, but what is his name, like Jeff Davis or something like that?
Yeah.
I think I remember reading somewhere once that he said that he probably wouldn't make Styles bisexual unless the actor that plays Styles came to him and said, that he's getting sort of, that maybe he's a little bored with where his character's going and he wants to try something different. And it's like, well, okay, so you're going to leave this decision up to the actor? You're the creator. Shouldn't you sort of be the one crafting the story?
But I mean, also that the actor who plays him also does a ton of queer baiting, and I call it, and I would classify it now as queer baiting if that's true and the power is his, because he plays up the oh yeah, we could be together, and when he's on interviews with him, oh, I say really cute things about him, and we even hug and we talk about being on a ship and all that stuff. And then,
I mean, granted,
it's not his fault if they don't actually get together. Yeah. But if that's true and he could actually say, no, yeah, let's actually do this, then he's queer baiting.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I read somebody else paraphrasing an interview, so I don't know how accurate that statement was, but yeah.
It just seems at this point it seems ridiculous, like that this even has to be an issue. Why don't they, and like it's Teen Wolf. It's not like let's say Doctor Who, right?
Uh-huh.
All of a sudden to say, okay, now Doctor Who is going to now be super super into leather BDSM, right? Like it's saying it's a little more complicated because this is a long-standing character that has a lot of canon that can now be brought up on a lot. Like if you started dating a dude, even just dating a dude, you would now consider other relationships in different aspects, and people would go back, whatever. This is a brand new show, and from the first season they were talking about it. They were saying, oh yeah, well maybe we'll make him gay if you guys want him to be gay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a big issue, and it's Teen Wolf. I get that it's a legacy name now that you made a TV show, because it wasn't a legacy name before. But it's not a big deal, you guys. It's not like people are going to be like, how dare you ruin the title of Teen Wolf? It was the American institution.
Yeah. And the thing that I think is, like, I guess the people behind the show have said before that they've created a world basically where there isn't really homophobia, where the characters that are gay, like Danny, it's just accepted, nobody has a problem with it, it's all happy
that's bullshit time. Though
that I know, but that's what they've said, right? And if that is the sort of world that they are going for, then they could easily make any of the characters have an attraction towards someone of the same sex. They wouldn't even have to say, oh, I'm gay now, or I'm lesbian now, or I'm bi now. They wouldn't even have to say that. They could just say, this is who I'm dating now. This is who I like right now. I'm just going to go along with it.
Realistically, if you lived in a society where there was no judgment on sexuality, there would be no gay, lesbian, whatever. That would be, it would make no sense. And I think it's not only a disservice, it's dangerous to have this show for teenagers when our generation is kind of like being the upheaval of this homophobia.
Yeah.
To say, okay, it just doesn't exist in this, we're going to show gay characters. No, even if you just do it a little bit, show someone, being homophobic, have it be a bad guy or a character who comes in and leaves, and show the good guys saying, you can't say that stuff. You need to show, if you're doing a show for teenagers or kids, you need to not show a utopia. You need to show an example of the desire for utopia.
I thought that, even if they didn't want to commit to making, say, Styles be bisexual, they could always do something similar to sort of what well, you've never seen the movie The History Boys, have you?
No.
Okay, so it's set in the 80s at this at a British school for boys, and there's this one character named Dakin who seems like, he's a student, and he is clearly shown as like a total like hetero womanizer. And there's another student named Posner. These are both their last names, by the way. Posner, who is obviously in love with Dakin, just unabashedly, blatantly in love with Dakin. And their class, they're in a very small class, and the school brings in this sort of tutor for them to help them get better for this college entrance exam. And Dakin gradually seems to be developing a crush on this male tutor, Dakin, who was this completely heterosexual guy up until that point. And even towards the end of the movie, Dakin basically goes up to this professor named Irwin and propositions him and says, you know, do you want to maybe have some coffee this weekend, and then maybe we can, you know, hook up, basically is what he propositions. And he seems totally into it, right? And then Irwin gets into this car accident, so it never actually ends up happening. But Dakin says, you know, at least I asked. It didn't happen, but it would have happened if it hadn't been for this car accident. So they could, if they didn't want to solidify and commit to making Styles be bisexual, they could do something like that, where he maybe has a crush on another guy, but then through some circumstance it doesn't end up following through with it. Although I think that may upset the fans. But I feel wouldn't
that just be more queer baiting?
I don't know, because I feel like stuff like that probably happens in real life, where someone has an attraction towards someone of the same sex, but they just never follow through on it.
But that'd be cool if then the show ended. But this show's going to go on and on until it stops making money. And if it make him canon bisexual, and then he just only dates girls, which would be fine. In fact, we should actually encourage the fact that you can actually only have dated one gender, even if you're attracted to both.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would seem a little odd, like, oh, he was attracted to that one dude once, and it was a big deal about bisexuality, and just never addressed it again.
But like I said, I feel like stuff like that probably happens in real life too, where someone may briefly have, may even have an actual relationship with someone of the same sex, and then after that relationship ends, they're never attracted to someone of the same sex again, or they never get into a relationship with someone of the same sex again. I mean, that kind of stuff happens in real life.
Yeah. But I also feel like if we're talking about TV shows and movies, we're not at a point yet or where society can even tackle that yet. Because they can't even tackle the fact that some people genuinely just like people of the other gender, or genuinely go between, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So for people, because then it would seem if Bill O'Reilly got a hold of that, he would say
it was a phase.
Yeah, it could be cured. It was a phase.
Yeah. There's no easy solution to this. It's either you just make him bisexual or you don't, and you stop baiting.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is if they just did that, then the next show that came out, they could have a character who's just nothing. When they say, oh, are you gay? Are you bisexual? Well, I don't know. What the fuck? Who cares?
Yeah.
And it would just be a non-issue. But first, you actually have to show mainstream homosexuality, bisexuality, pansexuality.
Yeah. I feel like to some extent there may be hesitation to make Styles bisexual or gay or just non-straight, because they already have a gay character, and to make a character that was not initially thought of as being non-straight, to suddenly make them non-straight, sort of is saying, well, this gay character that we conceptualized from the beginning is a failure with the fans.
Well, I think it's a failure if you only have one gay character. Because who the fuck are they supposed to date?
Well, there was the two alpha twins. He was dating one of them.
Yeah. But
although we haven't really seen Danny at all since the season came back. I'm not really sure if he's even going to be much in this half of the season. So
yeah, and there, I mean, it's weird when you're talking about a TV show, because a lot of the fan interpretation matters so much to what becomes canon. Because
Yeah.
the fact is, the moment the credits, the opening rolled, everybody who saw that show was like, nope, Styles is gay and he's with that guy. Like, it was the writer's intention for him to be straight, maybe, but he was never straight to anyone. The writer misinterpreted their own work.
Especially when he after they went to, well, I think it happened after Styles and Scott went to that gay club to save Danny. And then afterwards, after that, didn't like Styles almost became obsessed with asking Danny if he was attractive to gay guys?
I think that actually, I think the first time he said it was before that.
Before
and then
that,
after
okay.
that, yeah, and then he kind of kept up with the question afterward. After they,
And I mean, I feel like it was I mean, this may not have been intentional, but by him specifying, am I attracted to gay guys, instead of just, am I attractive?
yeah,
It seems as if he's trying to figure out if guys would find him attractive, instead of just, am I generally attractive? So, I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know. I feel like,
It came off as a young guy who's in our societal climate right now, who, because when I was in high school, being gay wasn't a big deal. I know it was.
I think that's because you were in California.
I know, and what I'm about to say is, I know there's a lot of places where it was a big deal, but I was in a place where it wasn't, and now we're starting to move into a time where that's kind of becoming a mixture in this. Maybe this California mentality is becoming more popularized.
Yeah.
So I see a guy his age, his character's age, being in high school. I could understand that maybe he kind of, because I think, aren't they supposed to be like in a liberal part of the United States or something?
They're in California.
Well, then, yeah, I mean, it was like a non-issue in my high school if anyone was gay. So and now gay culture is becoming so popular. So I can see how a character his age, he's impressionable, he's trying to figure out his sexuality, he's in a social environment where it's not really judgmental and other people are gay, and if he is bisexual, that's harder because it's not, nope, I only like girls, I only like boys. If he's trying to figure out his sexuality, it would be, well, can I be with a guy? Would a guy be into me? It seems like a natural question for a boy in his situation to honestly ask.
Yeah, if indeed, because I mean, granted, I'm not a boy, so I don't know this, but I would assume that if a guy has never felt any sort of attraction towards another guy, he wouldn't even have to question, am I attractive to guys? Because it wouldn't be anything on his radar.
Yeah, kind of, but I've also known a lot of straight guys who are like, do you think a guy would think I was hot? But, I mean, this character, he obsessively kind of goes over it, so
Yeah,
it's
I
kind of on
know.
a different level.
I don't know. So much for a light way to wrap up the show.
Yeah, and boy, is this a long show. We hit 2 hours, nearly. So now that everyone's angry and disillusioned about society, have a good day.